This one hometown has produced more NCAA Wrestling Champions since 1999 than any other place in the country. Do you know where it is? What's up, my name's Josiah, and welcome to Fanco Wrestling, where we talk all about wrestling news, tips, and lifestyle. And this week, we're talking about stats from the national tournament from 1999 to 2019. And we're talking about which hometown has produced the most national champions. Now, this is a little bit different than which high school has produced the most national champions, which if you haven't checked out that video, make sure you give it a watch because it's very interesting to see. Now, there is some overlap, as you may guess, but there isn't necessarily an exact correlation because, with the hometowns, you have prep schools. With schools like St. Ed's, like Blair Academy, you have these wrestlers who come from all different parts of the country. So although you may have a guy, Blair may be one of the top producing high schools in the country since 1999, not everybody comes from Blair in New Jersey. I'm going to dive into which hometowns have the best and the most producing national champions. And make sure you stick around to the end of this video because I'm going to be diving into the heat maps where which parts of the country, not just hometowns, but which big parts of the country are the most major hotbeds in wrestling since 1999 to 2019 when 1999, if you aren't aware, that's when the weight changes took effect. The current weight changes took effect in the national tournament, and that's the stats that we're going from. First of all, I have to give the honorable mentions to the four-time national champions, Cale Sanderson's high school in Heber City, Utah, then Ithaca, New York, which is where Kyle Dake's from, and then Logan Stieber is from Monroeville, Ohio. I have to throw those out there because I'm going by number of individual national champions from these hometowns, as opposed to total titles. Because if you go by total titles, yeah, of course those Cale Sanderson's and Kyle Dake's high schools are going to be at the top because they have 4 total national titles, which actually the number one hometown has 4 total national titles from a few different champions, which is very interesting. But I throw those in there as honorable mentions. As I go up this list, I'm going to go through these first few fairly quickly just because we want to get to that top spot, which hometown is the most producing. Starting off with Apple Valley. Apple Valley in Minnesota, you have 2 national champs from there, Mark Hall, and then you have Seth Gross, who's the most recent national champ in 2018. Now, they will both be back for the wrestling season 2019-2020, but you also have Gable Stevenson from that hometown, from that high school area. So it's pretty exciting to see. Now, with them, of course, with a lot of these wrestlers, you have guys who have moved, guys who have went all over the place. So some people say, Mark Hall is not from Apple Valley. Okay, that's just what I'm going for with this, and they're not the number one school anyway, so what do those stats really matter? Going into Tucson, Arizona, Eric Larkin from Arizona State and Nate Gallick from Iowa State were national champs from Tucson, Arizona, from Sunnyside High School. Both of them went there. From Waynesburg, Pennsylvania is actually one of the top producing hometowns in the country. And Waynesburg has produced 2 national champions in Coleman Scott, Olympian Coleman Scott, who won national title from Oklahoma State in 2008. And then you also have Josh Koshek, who won a national title at Edinburgh. Both of them hailing from Waynesburg. One of them is from Waynesburg Central, one of them from Waynesburg. Those schools combined, but both from the hometown of Waynesburg. Now, Webster, South Dakota. Interesting choice, interesting stats for the most producing hometown and national champions. Now, one very famous guy from Webster, you may know him as Brock Lesnar, who wrestled at Minnesota. Of course, he is a professional professional wrestler in the WWE, and he wrestled. You also have Greg Gillespie. And both of them, they went to actually separate high schools, but both of them from the hometown of Webster. Next up is Virginia, a Virginia hometown. called Chesapeake, Virginia. You have two high schools there that are high producing in national champions, Great Bridge and Western Branch. You have Carl Perry and then Byron Tucker. Both of them are national champions. Moving up the list, Murrysville, Franklin Regional High School is where Murrysville is, where the hometown is in Pennsylvania. They've produced 2 national champions and 2 total titles, just like every school so far. These national champions are Spencer Lee and Nico Megaludis. Spencer Lee, the most recent from 2019, he won a title at Iowa, and then Nico Megaludis won a title at Penn State. Of course, Spencer Lee won 2 titles, and looking to win more, so that will probably bump Murrysville up in the hometowns in the years to come. But this is just over the last 20 years. Now, next up, the last school that is produced, actually we're going to be jumping up to 3 titles, just like Murrysville had 3 titles. This hometown from Iowa has produced 3 total titles, 2 individual champions. Jay Borschel and Matt McDonough, both from Marion, Iowa, one from Linn-Mar High School, the other from Virginia Tech High School. Both of these guys hailing from Iowa. Moving up this list, from Heartland, Wisconsin, you have 2 well-known guys. One maybe a little bit more well-known because of his UFC career, his MMA career, and Ben Askren, 2-time national champion, Hodge Trophy winner, and then his brother Max Askren, who's actually the last national champion from this hometown in Heartland, Wisconsin. Of course, they're hailing from Arrowhead High School. Now, this high school has produced 3 total titles and 2 national champions. And we're going to still continue along with these 2 national champions with Cambridge, Minnesota, Cambridge-Isanti High School. There's Tony Nelson and Luke Becker. Both went to Minnesota to wrestle, both from Cambridge, which is in Minnesota. So, you know, a couple of these guys, they like to, you'll see a lot of times, they like to stick to their states. You'll see the PA guys go to Penn State. The Minnesota guys go to Minnesota. Oklahoma guys go to Oklahoma State or Oklahoma. Iowa guys, you know, it goes on and on and on. But it's just interesting to see that that's how it pans out. One more with 3 total national titles, and that is Chicago, Illinois, where Tony Davis is from, who went to UNI, and TJ Williams, who is a 2-time national champion from Iowa, wrestled. And make sure you let me know, are you from any of these hometowns? Are you close to these hometowns? And is it pretty cool to see, you know, where all these stats fall in line, where there's a lot of overlap with where these guys are producing, or which high schools and which hometowns are producing national champions. And we'll get to those heat maps in just a little bit, but we still have a couple more schools to go over, hometowns to go over rather. And first of all is Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. 2 guys who both went to Penn State, both in the Bellator, in Ed Ruth and Phil Davis. Now, Ed Ruth is a 3-time national champion. Phil Davis just a 1-time national champion. One from Harrisburg, one from Susquehanna Township High School, both those high schools, but both in Harrisburg, and that keeps them on the list as one of the top 5 producing high schools as far as national titles are concerned. Stillwater, Oklahoma, a major wrestling hotbed, which I'll get to in a bit with the heat map. Stillwater, Oklahoma, you have 2 guys from this high school, Mark Perry and Chris Perry, brothers. Mark Perry actually went to Blair High School, although he's from Stillwater, Oklahoma. So this is kind of where I was talking about earlier with Blair. They have one of the most producing national champion high schools. However, not everybody's from New Jersey, just as in Mark Perry. He's from Stillwater, actually went to wrestle at Iowa, a 2-time national champion. Next up on the list is Lemoore High School, which you'll recognize as one of the top producing high schools. It's Lemoore. You have Isaiah Martinez, Imar, 2-time national champion, and Chris Pendleton, also a 2-time national champion. Imar wrestled in Illinois. Pendleton wrestled at Oklahoma State. Now we're into the top 3. And I will say, you know, while a lot of these schools have 2 individuals, the number 1 school is a clear winner. And they actually have more than just 2 individual national champions and more than, a few titles. So what is number 3? What am I talking about next? Sandpoint, Idaho. And Sandpoint, Idaho, you have 2 guys from Jake Roseholt from Oklahoma State, 3-time national champion, which is pretty impressive, and then Jared Lawrence from Minnesota, both of them from Sandpoint. Next up, 1 hometown, 2 high schools that are major producing, Edmond North and Edmond Memorial, both from Edmond, Oklahoma. 2 national champions, and these are Tan Ware, who wrestled at Oklahoma. He's from Edmond North High School. And then you have Johnny Hendricks, who's the last national champion from this high school, from Oklahoma State, who is from Edmond Memorial High School. He won in 2006. Now, the number 1 high school, before I get to the heat match, before I get to
major wrestling hotbeds, the number 1 hometown for producing national champions is Davison. Davison, Davison, Michigan. From Davison High School, you have 3 individuals from this hometown. Brent Metcalf, who's a 2-time national champion from Iowa. Paul Donahoe from Nebraska, who's a national champion. And then you have John Reeder from ISU, who's the most recent champion from 2011. That is the number 1 producing hometown, is Davison, Michigan. Now, as far as wrestling hotbeds are concerned, where are the major hotbeds for where these guys are from, where these national champions are from? And there are some clear spots where you can see, just major blotches of, a lot of national champions and a lot of national titles were won from these hometowns. So first of all, New Jersey. New Jersey, you have just a big kind of blob of schools. You have New Bergen, hometown, Lakewood, Lyndhurst, Bloomfield, Stillwater Township. A lot of these places are in a similar vicinity. Sicklerville, Highbridge, South Plainfield. Just New Jersey as a whole is kind of a wrestling hotbed, I would say, since 1999 to 2019. Central Oklahoma is kind of another place where you have Stillwater, you have Oklahoma City, another major hotbed. Then you have Central Ohio. You have St. Paris, Columbus, Broadview, Monroeville. All of these are in a similar vicinity, and it's just interesting to see where a lot of these guys come from. Then you have California, Central California. You have Bakersfield, Fresno, San Jose. Kind of within that area, you have a couple of national champions. And then we have just Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania as a whole is a wrestling hotbed. A lot of these states are California, New Jersey, Oklahoma, but Pennsylvania kind of has 2 major hotbeds. First off, on the eastern side of the state, you have Harrisburg, Nazareth, Easton, Wingate, State College, Allentown. These are all, a little bit of a wrestling hotbed. But then on the other side of the state, which is probably the most impressive wrestling hotbed from this heat map, most impressive wrestling hotbed in the entire country, is southwestern Pennsylvania. In southwestern Pennsylvania, you have Murrysville, Benton, Yatesboro, Wexford, Pittsburgh, McGuffey, Shaler, Collinsville, Greensburg, Mount Pleasant. These are all high churning rate of national champions. And I think that's so cool to see where all of these fall into place. Now, if you are interested in these hometowns and these high schools, then you're going to love finding out which state is the highest producing in national champions since 1999. And I'll tell you right now, there's one clear winner. So make sure you check out this video to find out all about that.